Hey guys, Chef Ro here. Today I'm going to make Italian meringue because that's what I'm going to put on top of that curd that I made in the other video. That curd, you could use that to make like a lemon meringue pie. So I'm going to show you a good meringue for something like that. Okay, this is what we call Italian meringue. So there's three kinds of meringue. There's Swiss, Italian, and French. Italian meringue is probably the most stable, but it's also kind of the scariest to work with, but it's going to work really well for us here. First of all, I've got some water and some sugar here in the pan. Now, the key here is that you cannot let the sugar crystallize. And because I don't use corn syrup to stabilize it, it means that I have to keep wiping the pan on the sides for the first half of the boiling process. So just keep a pastry brush in a bowl of water or a measuring cup of water, and if you notice, any place I saw little bits of sugar, I went and wiped that down. The reason why is it's a chain reaction, right? Back to baking as a science, and sugar likes to go back to its original form in the granulated kind, right? It likes to go back into little crystals. So if a crystal jumps up onto the side of the pan, it falls back in and it sets off a chain reaction, making all those sugar crystals go back to being crystals. And then it won't ever actually get to the temperature that we want. We're trying to get to soft ball stage, so right around 240 degrees is what we're looking for. At 220 degrees, we're going to start our eggs. So I'm going to let this start boiling. The key here is that you cannot, under any circumstances, stir, move, touch, do anything. The only thing you can do is have your little bowl of water and wipe down the sides when necessary. That's it. No touching, or else you set off a chain reaction of crystallization and it's going to be a problem. So we're going to let this get, when I get to 220, I'll come back and I'll show you where we go from there. Okay, so the sugar has now reached about 220 degrees, and if you've ever worked with sugar, you know that just sugar work, you learn to hate the number 220 because it'll stick at 220 for a really long time. That's why we don't want to whip our egg whites at all until we've gotten to at least 220, because it'll sit at 220 for a little while before it shoots up. It'll sit there, and then once it shoots up, it starts going quickly. So once you hit 220, now we can start our egg whites whipping at just like a medium speed or so. And so we're going to whip this until this reaches 240, and then I'll show you what we do with that next. Okay, I've turned this off for just a second so you can hear what I'm going to say, because it's getting really loud here in a second, and you'll just have to see what I'm doing. But we've reached softball stage on my sugar. You can see there's no color on it. If it's gone to color, then it's way too hot. So I'm going to flip this all the way to high, these eggs, and then we're going to clamp this straight against the edge because we need it to go down the side so it cools slightly before it hits the eggs and it doesn't scramble them, and also to keep it away from the whisk so that it doesn't fly back out and get us, okay? So here we go. Okay, all my sugar is in, so now I'm just going to let this finish whipping. It's extremely hot right now. As it cools, it will actually whip into a meringue, and it will be very, very stable. You don't have to bake this meringue or anything. You can use it just as it is, and a torch always works really nice on top of it as well. So I'm going to let this whip, and I'll come back and show you when it's done. Okay. You can see now that, number one, I can easily touch the thing and leave my hand there. It's perfectly fine. It's not hot anymore. And you can see that we've reached stiff peaks. Now, most people make the mistake of checking the peaks by going like this, and if you look at that, that looks like I'm only at soft peaks, whereas I'm actually somewhere between medium and stiff. You always want to check in the bowl, so you can see I can get it to stiff peaks in the bowl, because a lot of times when you go like this, the motion of this and the force of that and gravity causes this to flop over. So you always want to check egg white peaks in the bowl, and you can see, okay, this is where we're looking for, and this is ready to go. So you can use this as a topping. It'll stay stable. If you put it in the refrigerator and it's not tightly covered, it might weep, because it'll just, that sugar will just attract the moisture, and so little beads of moisture will get onto it. But that's the worst thing that'll happen. It's going to stay fluffy. It's not going to deflate. You don't have to hurry and use it. And it's still the same thing. Meringue is always 1 part egg whites, 2 parts sugar. Doesn't matter which of the 3 types it is. That's the standard ratio. So if I did in this one I did 4 ounces of egg whites, and so I did 8 ounces of sugar. Very simple ratio, very simple to understand. Okay, so that is Italian meringue. Now if you wanted to make that buttercream, you would then do, it's a 1, 2, 3, so 1 part egg whites, 2 parts sugar, 3 parts butter. So I would take it to this, and then I would take room temperature butter and throw that in. So if I did 4 ounces of egg whites, 8 ounces of sugar, I would need 12 ounces of butter, and I would throw that in, and that would be Italian buttercream, which is quite delicious, and in my opinion takes to flavoring the best of all the buttercreams. So Italian meringue, a little bit sketchy on the pouring molten sugar, but delicious.